everyone, welcome. This is Billie Francis. We're going to get started in just a couple moments. I'm so grateful you're here, and I'm looking forward to our webinar today on everyday mindfulness. If you are here and you want to say hello, please let me know who's on the call.
Hi, Billie. It's Carla.
Hi, Carla. Welcome.
It's been a while.
Great. Anyone else want to say hi?
This is Peter.
Hi, Peter.
Hello, this is Fred.
Hi, Fred. Hi, Peter. This is great. So glad you're here.
Good to be here.
Thank you. Everyone able to see the screen and can hear okay?
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm only hearing.
Say it again?
I'm only hearing.
Okay, I think what happens is we get a little bit of feedback, so I probably will, in fact, go ahead and mute people. So I see Louise, welcome. I see you've joined. All right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. This is Everyday Mindfulness, and this is Billie Francis speaking from the Guiding Mindful Change. That's guidingmindfulchange.com. I am just so delighted that you're here, that we're going to spend a few minutes together talking about mindfulness, and especially the idea of everyday mindfulness. So the idea here is to be sharing some things, certainly not to replace what you're already doing in terms of your mindfulness practice, but to have an opportunity to just look at some new things, perhaps have some experiences. So like you, I have been studying and practicing mindfulness for quite a few decades, literally. And what I really think is key is the idea of practicing. And I think anyone who does practice any sort of mindfulness, whether that's yoga or meditation, I do those. I practice mindful eating. I do some other things that have supported me over the years to be present. That it does take patience, doesn't it? And it requires our attention, that we really focus and give some attention to these things that really want us to give us their undivided attention. So, but again, like all practices, there are times when we flow, it's easy. There's other times we notice maybe we're starting and stopping in our practice. We have breakthrough discoveries, we'll call them. And then there are times when things just sort of bog down, or we feel like we're slipping and sliding. So I think that's the nature of practice. So if you're like me, then that's something that you can take into consideration, maybe practicing some of the new things I'm going to share today, that give yourself permission to allow them to just be experiments, things that you can do. You can try it out, see if it fits for you. So once again, I'm here to share some things. I'm not here to replace things that you're already doing that work. And I do want to say from the beginning here that I do have something you all came to hear, no doubt, and that is the best mindfulness practice. So if you're taking notes, this would be a good time. Write this down. The best mindfulness practice is the one that you'll do. Now, I was being a little facetious there, but just be with that idea for just a moment. What is the practice that you will consistently do? And that's the one that's great. So there's really not this magical methodology, that really the magic happens in the practice itself. So I'm gonna unmute us. I wonder if anybody has a comment they could make about that. If there's a practice that you found that works for you and that you are able to do on a consistent basis. Anybody want to share about that?
Billie, Carla here.
Yes.
One of the things that I've recently been doing is taking a mental checklist of my posture. And I know that that sounds kind of elementary, but there's some really wonderful people out there doing postural studies and just sitting the way I need to, like I have an avatar tail, and making sure that my neck is extended, my shoulders are down, and I'm, using my back in a different way really helps. And I do that check probably, 4 or 5 times every day, and when I'm driving, almost constantly. And it has made a huge difference in everything, from breathing to immune system to everything. So I'm impressed with that. Just a simple little thing like posture.
Beautiful example. Something every day, in fact, all the time, and anytime you want to check in. That's a great example, Carla. Thank you. Anyone else, just before we move on?
You know, for me, this is Fred. Sometimes if I'm really, really busy and don't take time to do a meditation, like sitting still in the morning, like I try to do every day, a nice way to practice being mindful, if I have or haven't done that, is I focus my attention. I don't mean my eyes now. I don't mean my vision, but my attention on the third eye. And that just puts me into a centered place, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm working or driving. So that's
nice.
always a nice way to stay tuned in.
And Fred, just so that we're all clear, tell me what you mean by when you say third eye.
Well, it's a chakra. I don't know if people are aware of the term chakra. It's like an energy center, and it's in the area of the center of the forehead.
Thank you.
It's along the astral spine. It's called a chakra.
Right.
In some traditions.
Very good.
And it's an energy center that when the attention is focused there, it kind of just gives you a tuning into what's present.
Great. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so somewhere located there in the forehead area, somewhere between the eyebrows. Perfect. So good. So a couple of good examples about things we can do that you can maybe gain from each other. But we're always best to discover what works for us. And it sounds like with Carla, her posture, and Fred from time to time tuning into that third eye chakra center, that works for them. Beautiful. Okay. All right, we're going to try something. Fred just actually mentioned about not visually, but actually I'm going to encourage us to do something here of a mindful practice. And we'll start with the definition first, however. This is the one that maybe a lot of you are familiar with. It's a quote from John Kabat-Zinn. Mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So many wonderful key words in there. Awareness, of course, being one of them. And we've talked already a little bit about that, is just focus or awareness. And something that arises. So when we mean arise, we're probably talking not about something that we concentrate on or bring up from our mental awareness as much, but arises is just allowing. I think it's the idea of making it welcome, so that something can just come into being in our awareness. So that's the idea then of something arising. Obviously, we talk about being purposeful and being in the present moment. So it's a now thing. But the phrase I was going to focus on too is the idea of non-judgment. It's so easy, is it not, to fall into judgment of ourselves, of what is, of what we want to be. We can do it in so many, many ways. A real simple example sometimes is getting down on ourselves when we're forgetful. We've all been forgetful, I'm sure, from time to time, forgetting the name of something we're trying to remember, or even the name of a person we're trying to remember. And we think and we think and we concentrate, and that name will just not come. And that's an opportunity to practice non-judgment. And sometimes the temptation there is to say, well, gosh, I'm getting so forgetful, or why can't I remember, and start to get down on ourselves. But non-judgment would be simply just noticing, very opposite, just noticing that maybe something has slipped your mind, and being affirming and saying, I'm sure that will come back to me. So we circumvent those chances to call ourselves names, and really just be gentle with ourselves as we affirm that what we're trying to remember, in fact, will probably bubble back up sooner or later. So I also know that what happens for me is when I skip that judgment step, I have such a better chance of actually retrieving information. I have a better chance of extending kindness to myself, obviously. I have a better chance of even remembering the thing I have forgotten, because that interference, that harshness is not present. And so just being gentle and allowing and non-judgmental at times of even forgetting, then we have a better chance then. And sure enough, there it shows up, the name of that friend or the name of that restaurant you were trying to remember can come back to you, because you've just allowed it to. You've allowed it to, and you've skipped that judgment step. So the practices I'm going to share with you, some of them are centered around this idea of an idea I came up with, a very, very simple mindfulness practice, and it has to do with the fact that we carry around this wonderful tool or instrument all the time, and that is our bodies. So I want you to have an opportunity to go through with me some of the parts of our body that are our senses, and see if in fact you can utilize senses to explore your mindfulness, and to be present in those just little minutes at a time. We've already talked about that. Fred talked about that. And Carla, with just those times when you can just take a couple of minutes aside and be present. So I won't have time to go through all 5 senses exercises with you, but I want you to know I want you to have the value of this. So what I've created is a little handout that will go through each of the 5 senses and guide you through present moment awareness exercises. So stay with me, if you would, through the end of this webinar, and I'll tell you how to get a hold of that little handout. So here we are walking around every day with our bodies, and that's just another one of the myriad of opportunities to be mindful. So of course, our bodies allow us to do those functions of seeing and hearing and smelling and tasting, and of course touching. And so we'll use the 5 senses to practice some mindfulness. So we're going to start with our sense of sight. Now you can choose to look at the image I'm going to put on your screen, or anything else maybe in your environment, an object, or even a candle you have lit, whatever would be there. Now, please, if you've decided to join our webinar and you're driving in your car, this is not the time to take your eyes off the road and instead focus on a single object, but otherwise you can practice this later. But the idea is to just be with your sense of sight for about a minute. Now, it sounds simple enough. I'll just stare, but we're really not staring. We're mindfully using our eyes, allowing our eyes to just do whatever they're doing. We don't judge it. We don't censor it. We're just noticing what the eye is drawn to. And what it also allows us to do is to sort of minimize the other senses. And so often when we're looking at something, there's sights or sounds, or perhaps, or even aromas that might be interfering with that sense of just seeing. So in this case, we're just going to practice observing. So I'm going to give you another, on this next screen, I'm going to give you something to observe, and I'll take you through the little process here of just being with that one sense of sight. So let's see here. It's part of what I'm calling the Mindfulness Minute. So here's the larger version. So we've got our focal point here, and I just invite you now to soften your gaze and just simply being with this scene or that object. And what do you notice about the light on the surface of the object? What do you notice about any shapes? And just with this wonderful sense of sight, what do you experience about the colors or shades? And finally, how do you notice your experience changing as you regard this particular object or scene? And let's bring that to a gentle conclusion. So as we know, in terms of mindfulness, the objective here is to be here now. And so we've had a little minute of just being with our sense of sight. For about 20 years now, I've been supporting people as a coach. So I'm a mindful coach. And coaching helps us to do this. It helps us to be more aware of what is. And we help people kind of get align what they're thinking, what they're doing, what their heart's desires are, what their values are. We help them align those so that their aspirations, their conversations, their decisions, everything moves forward connected to that, connected to themselves, connected to their options that they're choosing, and to anything they're committed to. So because of this coaching background that I have, I'm going to use my techniques as a coach to ask some questions about the experience that you just had. So perhaps that you could notice now how you might be feeling after spending just 1 minute with a little focus. Just very subtly, are there any changes in your mind? Any changes that you might notice in your body? And as you were just simply regarding the object and probably doing nothing other than just breathing, what made it easy to stay just there with the breath and with the image? And maybe you can even reflect back and think, what were some of those feelings or even thoughts that were trying to get your attention? So we've had one experience now of just being with the sense of sight. Any comments anyone would want to share? Let me get the mute button off here so you can add some comments if you choose. Anyone want to say anything about that experience?
Billie, Carla here.
Yes, Carla.
For me, I felt myself really slowing down, and the focus of the shapes and the colors really helped me to just sort of leave my current malaise and just go into a nice place of almost similar to meditation.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. And we call that just this here now. Again,
Mm-hmm.
very nice. Anyone else comment? Okay, great. So let's, I want to share with you also some things that I guess we'll talk about in terms of pathways. And in addition to the five senses, these are some things that I'm sure we're familiar with most of the words on this page, but I wanted to discuss them in terms of this idea of everyday mindfulness. The wonderful concept of gratitude. And I'm going to read these through just in case people are on the phone and not hearing or not seeing actually the webinar. So we have on this list of pathways to presence: gratitude, appreciation, non-judgment, self-awareness, and happiness. So gratitude is such a wonderful place to be, is it not? In a state of mind of just feeling full and present and grateful, and in the end, at the end of the day, as they say, it's really a choice to be in gratitude. And so as we can learn to expand that, we've always known that we could be, as little children, supposed to say please and thank you, and we're supposed to remember things that honey attracts more than vinegar. So something like that, to be grateful, have a good attitude. We're told that in all things be grateful. So it seems easy enough to say that, and we also might have some conditioning that keeps us out of gratitude. And so in some circles they call that more, better, different thinking. So we're thinking we want something more, we want something to be better. We like what we have perhaps, but if it could be just a little different. And so our busy minds can sometimes scan for that more, better, different option. I always think of people who maybe buy a new something, a car. Perhaps they get a new car, and everything about that car is just great when they first get it. They're appreciating it. They're in gratitude. They're just so happy with all the features that they were hoping to get, such an upgrade from the last vehicle they drove. And slowly but surely, those features are compared to the newer ones that have just come out in the newest model. So now your car doesn't have the surround camera, that wonderful rear view camera that you had. Now they have a 360 camera, or that another feature just got an upgrade. I mean, it's like that obviously with so much in technology and with cars or with phones or whatever else we have. There's always that newest version that comes out. And so where we may start in gratitude, our minds sometimes are conditioned to notice what's missing or what could be more or better or different. And when I say that gratitude's a choice, it truly is. We can choose to stay there. We can watch our minds sort of be wanting other and gently bring them back to appreciation of, again, what we have, what's here for now. The other thing I was contemplating about gratitude is I don't consider it the same as being complacent. It's not saying, well, I don't get to have anything else. If I'm simply always happy with what I have, that will limit my ability to expand or have more. And I'm realizing in my own life that is totally just poor thinking, because as I expand my gratitude, my heart's open, my appreciation is just flung wide open, then that invites more good. And so it certainly gratitude doesn't limit or interfere with us having more. It actually welcomes more. So let's look at the next thing on the list here. It's called appreciation. And this is, for me, a subtle distinction, but I think gratitude is more of a state of being, whereas appreciation, I think, is gratitude expressed. So we can certainly appreciate other people and ourselves. So in this way, I'm calling appreciation that ability to extend our gratitude or allow it to reach out to another person. And just, there's so many opportunities to do this. Appreciating service that we've had, appreciating somebody holding the door open when we're walking into our coffee shop of choice, whatever happens there, just being appreciative and expressing that. And so that brings us into this moment. When we are in gratitude and we express appreciation, we are living in that moment. It's nowhere else. We're not thinking, we might be thinking about the next thing or the next phone call or the last phone call, and yet that minute we're connecting with another person, greeting them, appreciating them, thanking them, boom, we're right here, right now. So consider those two another, I guess we're calling it a pathway to the present moment. We've already touched on judgment, but again, in a subtle way, start watching your words, and the word I'm going to highlight is the word bad. So bad is often attached to quite a few things. We hear it in terms of I have a bad cold. I'm having a bad day. That I'm getting bad service from the waitress here. That so subtle, but that in itself is a judgment. And so the challenge or the opportunity here in practicing everyday mindfulness is to be aware of the tendency, perhaps, or the inclination to evaluate. Even when we compare, we are evaluating and judging. So the invitation is to see if we can notice, just notice. It's so neutral to notice. Notice rather than complain or compare. And try that. Eliminating complaining, eliminating comparing, and try that for about an hour. Just be out about doing your day, see how you do. I know of people who are trying to do that for quite a few days in a row, and the fun thing about trying something like that is that every time you find yourself complaining, you get to start over with day one or hour one. It just helps us become more mindful of, again, falling into a habit of complaining or judging or comparing. So that's another one on the list here. When I get to the end here, I'd love to have some comments. So let's just get to the next two. So the next one I have here is self-awareness. I'm not talking about self-indulgence. I'm talking about paying attention. Wonderful mindful practice to pay attention, whether it's to your posture or to your level of hunger. That's a great question to ask, by the way, is am I hungry? At what level are you irritated, or what level are you tired? Just to be asking that kind of on a regular basis. The HALT, H-A-L-T acronym is kind of helpful here. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? HALT. Just simply checking in, it does wonders. Check in with your attitude. See how you are. Are you in that kind of a positive framework, or are you finding fault? You might want to check in with your energy, not so that you could have more, but so that you could honor the amount of energy you have for any given task. I was coaching with someone recently who said she found her energy sort of waning, and she liked to think of herself as this the Energizer bunny, and it was so helpful for her to notice that that particular day her energy wasn't up and it wasn't the usual, and so she honored it and took some breaks and allowed herself to have some space in her doing this. So very, very cool to just once in a while have that self-awareness to ask where we are. The other thing we can be self-aware of is our thoughts, of course. What are my predominant thoughts? They're so powerful. They really do seem to manifest what's next in our experience. Go ahead and check out your level of comfort. And that's everything from physical comfort was already mentioned. Maybe you just need to shift positions. Maybe you need to do that right now. So how comfortable am I right this minute? Maybe it needs a time to relax your shoulders down from your ears, or shift around in your chair, or go ahead and stand up if you're sitting down, or vice versa. Just let the body direct how comfortable you are. But also, I think comfort can be a matter of being in a situation. In my case, I'm often cold, so I want to monitor how comfortable I am there, but also interpersonally. Is this environment comfortable for me? Is this conversation comfortable for me? Do I need to move myself to a place where I am more comfortable? So it's the key to conscious living, being self-aware. And the last thing on my list here is the word happiness as a pathway to presence. I know that I can't prevent all loss in my life. No one can. I do have times of sadness. Can't prevent that. I have times of wanting things to be other than the way they are, and I'm not particularly overjoyed with the situation. But I can ultimately choose happiness as a decision. That the circumstances, I don't maybe love them. I would like things to be other than they are, but I can be happy in spite of that. So we can choose to be happy, and we can choose to laugh even when nothing's funny. One of the practices I've used is something called laughter yoga, which actually is a methodology of well-being. It's very, very good for all parts of our hearts, our bodies. It's very helpful just to practice laughing. And in laughter yoga, we spend an hour together at a time laughing for absolutely no reason at all. No jokes, nothing's funny, there's no humor. It's just little activities that help us laugh. And it's fun to watch how the laughter, it reminds me about my happiness. It sort of awakens it. It's already in there. I'm like that little giggly little 4-year-old all over again. And it's fun to do that. So happiness being another thing that we can make a decision about on an everyday basis. So anyone want to comment or anything about what I've shared in this last little segment? And you could do that a lot more easily if I would take you off of this mute. That's called awareness right there. Okay. So anyone have anything to share about any of these?
Hi, Billy. It's Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Hey, yeah. In looking at these 5 things, I love to focus on these because they really are very practical things that you can do in the moment, even when busy. You know, you can always stop for 1 second to practice any of these things that were in these 5 pathways. So I really enjoyed hearing the details. I'm snapshotting these from my desktop, but it's nice to have the little explanations that you're giving in between because they're really practical things to do. I appreciate them.
Very good. Awesome. And that's the idea here, is for all of us to have a few things kind of stimulated so that we can see what we want to put into practice. Okay, I'm getting tons of interference here, so I'm going to have to take you guys off the speakers again. There we go. Okay, let's continue on, shall we? All right. In fact, let's do another mindfulness minute, and this time I'm going to use the sense of sound. So I'll give you an opportunity to just be listening for a little bit. All right, so the sense of sound. So once again, please be safe. If you need your eyes open to be safe, please keep them open. But for this one, it's actually helpful to actually close your eyes for just a bit and maybe take some conscious breaths. And literally, you might want to bring your attention to your ears. Just helps you be there. Be there right now with your ears. And begin then to notice any sounds in your environment. So which sounds perhaps captured your attention initially? Are there sounds now that are constant? You might call those background noises, or a machine running in the background. Maybe some of the sounds in your environment are varying in their volume or their rhythm or in pitch. And just in general, what's your experience of just listening in this present moment? Okay, go ahead and bring that to a gentle conclusion, opening your eyes as you're ready. Great. I actually find that one very soothing. I'll do that quite often. Just stop for a minute and just listen. It's especially fun when there are a lot of other stimulants around me. So, for instance, I love to go to the ocean. Very, very grounding. Talk about present moment awareness. It's just one of my favorite places to be. And when I practice this just the sound with my eyes closed, it causes me to focus even more on just the sounds that I maybe can't hear with my eyes open, or when I'm noticing the sun on my skin, or my feet in the sand, or some of the touch elements. Just sound. It's very, very powerful. So I invite you to practice that from time to time as well. So I've already mentioned that I've been involved with this mindful coaching now for about 20 years, and one of the tenets that's important for mindful coaching is that people are whole and resourceful. And it's very tempting, I know, that for some of our coaches and we have some coaches here on this call, on this webinar, but it has been tempting for us to share things that really are good ideas. It's tempting for all of us to do that. We have different opinions sometimes, or suggestions, or biases, and even that subtle stuff, that subtle advice that just comes in the form of a question. I was just wondering if maybe you thought of this. So what we do is we really learned that people are wise and have answers, and they're very resourceful, and they don't need us. They don't need our suggestions. They need to get support for discovering their own answers. So that's what we do. We really are guides on the side, so to speak, and we ask great, powerful questions and make sure those questions are open-ended and non-judgmental, and we just support people in discovering their own answers. And of course, then we're going to celebrate with them when they figure out some of these wonderful pathways to their fulfillment. So it turns out people discover that by practicing this idea of allowing people to be their own best resource, as opposed to me being their best resource, that they find out this stuff really does work, and that they couldn't have, they realize that they could never have come up with the kinds of solutions or answers that their clients do. So I put this up here just to highlight. I think in the center there I have a bolded section. This is from Carrie Phelps, one of our graduates. Being present with my clients in such a heartfelt way and journeying with them through their life transitions has energized my life with passion and purpose. So I really know from my own experience that one of my favorite mindfulness practices really is coaching, that just to be present for someone else in a listening, respectful, powerful way. So that's another practice that I get to use, is anytime I get to take on the role of a coach, whether it's formally or just supporting someone, just by being a listener, by paying attention, by remembering their wholeness, that too is a mindfulness practice. And I just, of course, want to mention to anyone here who wants to learn more about this, if you want to learn how to support people in this kind of, conscious, powerful way, please connect with me to learn more. We are, several times a year, we offer a program, a professional coach certification program. And that information is either at guidingmindfulchange.com, or you can contact me at Billie at guidingmindfulchange.com. Okay, let's move on, shall we? So the idea here that I want to share with you, and I'm going to preface this, that I'm going to share these three concepts with you. There's three areas of awareness here that I practice all of these, and I don't like them always, because they challenge me. That each one of these has allows for breakthroughs when we get into them, but initially they're just awful in the sense that they challenge me. So I'm going to share them with you. That the idea here is that we're paying attention. We're paying attention in this case to our thinking. Very, very key thing to do on an ongoing basis. But when I say paying attention, I'm again talking about observing rather than judging. Noticing, I guess we'll call it noticing, and then noticing, just observing and noticing is what gives us options. I would say the opposite end of mindfulness is that when we're just on autopilot, which we all do from time to time. Certainly driving is a great example. We don't need to hit cruise control to be on autopilot, because many of us have had the experience when we're driving from point A to point B, and next thing we arrive at point B and we don't remember how we really got there. It's a familiar route, and next thing you know, we were there. And there's a lot that had to happen to get ourselves safely from that one point to the next. But we sort of, as experienced drivers, we really can go on autopilot. So we're talking now about being more mindful of our thinking rather than letting it just be on autopilot, where it just thinks whatever it wants to think, and there's no master control there being our awareness. We want our awareness to be in the driver's seat and let it steer our thinking. So in other words, we get to choose our thoughts. So this first one here says, give up the need to understand. And that's one of those things where my mind went crazy the first time I heard that. Billie, give up the need to understand. Well, it seemed like such an important thing to do, to figure things out and to analyze and to track things and to really get the meaning behind everything. So I insisted that I needed to understand. And when I was told, no, don't do that, give up the need to understand, it made me a little panicky. And yet, with practice, what I find and have found and continue to find is that the letting go of the understanding, those kinds of details, actually brought me closer into knowledge and wisdom and peace of mind. So it sounds very simple to give up the need to understand, and yet I challenge you to practice that the next time that something comes along that normally your mind would take a hold of. Just stop and notice, and is this a time when I really need this, really need to understand this? And in fact, you'll find there are many times when releasing that need gives you the peace and the presence that you're ultimately going for anyway, and that you're safe. You're safe without it. So there's sort of your first challenge. Now the reason we do that, by the way, is we believe we can control things. So I'll give you a little. Well, actually, this is kind of into the next bullet here about know what you can and cannot control. So I have for you this little thing I call the 5 guarantees. And again, I said this in the beginning, it's kind of nice to have things that we can guarantee or that you can know for sure. Like the best practice mindfulness practice is the one you will do. And probably the least useful practice is the one you'll never do. But there's some more guarantees I want to share with you right now. So the first one is that you cannot control what someone else does. Now we try that all the time, do we not? We try to control what people do. We suggest other things. We give little hints. We manipulate. We do all sorts of things, but ultimately we cannot control what people do. And I'll move on to the next one. Try to take that one in, be with that. We can't control what people think. And again, there are many attempts to do that. We do that with our convincing arguments. We do that with our logic. We do that with mind controls of various ways. Politicians do it all the time. They want us to think a certain way. All of our advertising that we have in the media is having somebody in the advertising agencies trying to control what we think and actually what we do, right? To think their product is wonderful and then, of course, go out and buy it. But the reality is, when you think about we're aware of the people in our lives, that we really can't control what other people think. Now, the last one is on this list is that we can't control how other people feel. And once again, all of us can trace times when we've wanted to cheer people up, or we've wanted them to calm down, or we've tried to control various feelings that they're expressing, and it was pretty futile. And ultimately, even if it's temporary, we come to the conclusion that we really can't control how people feel. So there they are. We can't control what people think, feel, or do. Now, I told you there were 5 guarantees. The 4th guarantee is that we can control what we think and what we feel and what we do. Now, that's wonderful news. We can control that, and that's where the mindfulness comes in, is again checking in to discern, is this how I choose to feel? Is this what I choose to be doing? Is this, how I choose to think? So we do have control over that. And you know what? I just skipped a step. That's the 5th guarantee. That's the really good news, but I forgot to tell you the sad story, the 4th guarantee. The 4th guarantee, after you've realized that you can't control what people think or feel or do, the 4th guarantee is actually any attempt to try to control 1, 2, and 3, what people think, what people feel, what people do, you will guaranteed end up unhappy. It's guaranteed you're going to end up frustrated, angry, depressed, just completely undone by these attempts to control the other 3. So I challenge you to trace that. And so maybe as part of your awareness practice is to notice when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're disappointed, when you're depressed. can you trace it back to your attempts to control how someone else was thinking or feeling or what they were doing? And my experience is I can always trace it back. And so this is the chance then is to give that practice away, or to reconcile yourself to the fact that you can't control those things, and go back then to number 5, which I had out of order here, but number 5 is, oh, I can control what I do and how I feel and how I think. And I can also control my responses to what other people are doing or thinking or feeling, or what they're especially doing to me. So I can control that. In other words, if I'm being harmed, I can take action to move away. This is not the prescription for doormat. This is the prescription for happiness, actually. So the 5 guarantees. So that's what we can and cannot control. The short version is, I can control me. I can't control you. So as I said, I didn't promise these would be pleasant, but they're very mind-expanding practices, and again, things to be aware of. So the last one is about the truth. It just simply says, tell the truth. There are many examples of this 3-part, it's called the threefold filter, or the threefold sieves, or the 3 gates of gold, all different practices dating, Sufi tradition, all the way through Quaker tradition. But this is the idea, is that you have these 3 markers or gates or devices that you check along the way. And the first one is it true? So let's say you're about to share something with someone, and it could be about them or about someone else, or just something in general that you want to communicate. Your first, before you speak, the first thing you check in with is this true? So that's the indicator. If the answer is yes, this is true, that's the indicator that you can go forward. Pretty obvious that if it's not true, there's an indicator that you don't share it. Okay? The second gate, it's kind of these terms can be interchanged, but one of the ways I've heard it is it necessary? So something actually could be true about, let's say, about someone else. I just pulled a silly example out of the top of my head here. Let's say you find someone in the grocery store, and this person is particularly tall. Now that's true. They are taller than probably everyone else in the produce section at the grocery store. So the question is it necessary to tell them that, or to tell someone else that, or to comment on that? Probably not. There are other times when it is necessary to say something. Someone is at that same grocery store it just walked off with your grocery cart. Now, it's true they just did that. It's probably necessary you mention it. So you might go ahead and say it in that case. The third step then is it kind? So if you've come to the point when something you need to say or you thought about is true, yes, go. If it's necessary, yep, go. And then decide within yourself, how can I communicate this in a way that is kind? Total awareness rather than just knee-jerk responses or communications. We're stopping ourselves long enough to ask, is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? All right. I want to share one more practice. I'm not going to take, oops, there it was. I'm not going to take a lot of time on this one, but I just want to highlight it real quickly. And this is the sense of taste. So obviously we have sight, taste, touch, sound, and smell. So the sense of taste, it's very powerful to be with a bite of food in the present moment. Very powerful exercise. And I find that I can do that now with kind of a full meal. I'm getting practice at this, that I can enjoy a full meal doing nothing else but focusing on taste. So with that, of course, you're going to pay attention to the taste of the food, maybe the texture of the food. Is it hot? Is it cold? Do you enjoy it? Is it sweet, salty, bitter? You know, those kinds of things. Just present moment eating. Very, very popular tradition in certainly things that are talking now about weight management. They finally figured it out that the diet plans are probably not the way to go, but mindfulness is the way to go in terms of even weight management. Am I hungry? And what am I eating? And is it time to stop? Those kinds of things. The Ayurvedic tradition is also focusing on these very same things. So that's another sense. Just take a bite of food in the next day or two. Just be with it, see what you notice, and you can look at our little checklist here to go over some questions about it. Okay, I want to close with this wonderful quote here that's been made famous, Rilke, and I'll just read it and take it in. Be patient toward all that is unsolved in your heart and try to love the questions themselves, like locked rooms and like books that are now written in a very foreign tongue. Do not now seek the answers, which cannot be given you because you would not be able to live them. And the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps you will then gradually, without noticing it, live along some distant day into the answer. This is the most wonderful practice, and very recently, this is something that I've taken on, is to be with questions. I had a very disturbed night's sleep recently, and I was stretching and reaching and going anywhere I could to find answers to some of these concerns on my brain. And finally, I was at 3 o'clock in the morning. I pulled out my journal. I wrote down all my questions. It gave me great peace to do so. And at the end, I said, live the questions for now. So there they all were. And sure enough, in the next few days, some little answers came bubbling to the surface. So that's present moment awareness of a present moment facilitating the answers without me stressing and straining and having to come up with them. So I already mentioned in the world of coaching, we ask tons of questions, and we learn to love the questions as well. And in this way, again, they just come to the surface. So I do have some questions for you. What we're looking for then is the wisdom that's kind of lying dormant, allowing it to. The questions are just planting seeds. They're just seeds, and so we allow space and time, and sure enough, the answers can sprout and grow and inform us. So we pay attention to in the present moment, to invite these possibilities, these answers to sprout forth. I have a list of questions for you. I'm calling them the 25 key questions to expand mindfulness. I'll give you a couple of examples. What do I most need right now? Where in my life am I tolerating less than is best for me? And what other one here? What do I need to surrender or release or yield? Great questions. They bring us, again, just being with the questions. You don't have to have answers immediately. Just allow those answers to come forward. So you may have heard this story before, but the story is that there was an occasion when a woman was given a beautiful flower, and she took it to her home, and she kind of cleared off her dining table, make room for this to appreciate the flower. And then she noticed the rest of her dining room was a little cluttered and maybe a little dingy. So she went about kind of cleaning up the space around the dining area, and then the flower looked beautiful, and the rest of the space was sort of shiny. And but then she noticed that her spirits were lifted by just that one thing, clearing that space. And pretty soon, the rest of her home sort of kind of had took on that glow as well, because she was just inspired to beautify her environment based on one little rose. So I'm sharing some things with you today and hope that we're planting a little beauty or a little light in your awareness, so that maybe other things can start to be inspired to renew or to correct or to enliven. So I've discussed some things with you, some mindfulness minute experience, and I have for you actually 3 gifts that you can get through our website. And the first one is what I'm calling the Mindfulness Minutes. I've already talked about that. That's the 5 senses broken down, questions you can ask, little meditations you can do. You can do all 5 senses at once if you choose, or you can do a little 1 sense at a time and do them throughout the day. So that's the Mindfulness Minutes. The second gift is a mindfulness meditation audio. It's an 8-minute audio, just basically a visualization. It's a relaxation technique. It's again to bring you to the moment. So I have that for you. And then, as I mentioned, the 25 key questions to expand mindfulness. That questions we ask in our with ourselves, and just again be with one question at a time, or read all 25 every day, or whatever you choose to do with those. So at the bottom of the screen here is the link to receive those gifts. You go to Guiding Mindful Change and then /bonus materials mindfulness meditation. guidingmindfulchange.com /bonus materials mindfulness meditation. So these are fun things that I'm anxious to share with you. And you can either get them from that link I just shared. I've got it repeated here on the screen, or just go ahead and get in touch with me, Billie, at guidingmindfulchange.com. Be sure that you know that Guiding Mindful Change has a variety of other trainings, webinars, programs. They're all posted on our website. I'm excited about an upcoming new program you'll be hearing about, reading about. And any questions, comments that you have, please get in touch with me. I really appreciate all of you being here, and thank you for the comments that were made, and I wish all of you well and enjoy your mindfulness moments. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste. Thank you for joining.
Bye, Billie.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Billie, so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Billie.
Bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, Miss
Billie, is
Billie.
it possible to get that first slide back up?